If you're feeling down or depressed, it's quite possible that you have some habitual ways of meeting the world that lead you to feeling unhappy. Hello, my name is Helen Middleton. I'm a psychologist in private practice, and today I'd like to just take you through a few things to consider when you're trying to work out what it is that's getting you so down. What I'm going to do is run you through a few entrenched psychological processes that seem to contribute to depression. So as I run through them, you might like to note down on a piece of paper the ones that apply to you. If they don't apply to you, that's fine. The first one is self-blaming. That's where we go, oh no, why didn't I think of that? It's all my fault. I've stuffed up again. Oh, I'm useless. I'm hopeless. It's all my fault. Okay. The second one is perfectionism. What if I can't get it right? Oh, I need to get it right. This is awful if I can't get it perfect. I need everything to be perfect. I need everything to be under my control and everything perfect. The third one is difficulty with assertion skills. It might be easy to be really assertive at work, but maybe not so easy to be assertive in your own personal life. The fourth one is overthinking, where you are ruminating everything. Now, we've talked about that in a previous clip, but note it down if it applies to you if you're an overthinker. The fifth one is pushing hurt down. In other words, when something happens, life happens and we inevitably get hurt over something. So when something hurts, what do you do with it? Do you push it down and say, oh, no big deal, I'm not going to cause any ripples. I can deal with it, that's fine. And then something else happens that hurts and you push that down and no big deal, I can deal with that. Is that what you do? The sixth one is catastrophizing, which is making mountains out of molehills, making things bigger than Ben-Hur. If this applies to you, jot that one down. And number 7 is negativity. In other words, is your view of the world always glass half empty rather than glass half full? Do you always see the negative side of things? If that applies to you, jot that one down. I'm going to talk about each one of these in depth so that you can have a think about what you might do to change those habitual ways of dealing with the world in the hope of being a little happier. You can't change them if you're unaware that that's what you're doing. If you're unaware that your brain is travelling down those particular neural pathways, if they're beyond your awareness, then you can't change them. So I'm suggesting that you get very familiar with the thoughts, the neural pathways in your head that cause you the most grief and lead you to feeling quite depressed and down. Self-blaming. There's a spectrum. At one end, it's all everybody else's fault. The other end, it's all my fault. Now, up this end of the spectrum, people have great difficulty sustaining relationships because it's very, very, very difficult to have a good relationship if it's never your fault. Because good relationships work on one person saying, hey, I'm sorry, I stuffed up, I'll try and do better next time. And the other person saying, yeah, I also stuffed up and hey, I'll try and do better next time. And that's how relationships work and continually improve. If you're down this end of the spectrum, there's lots of positives about that because it means that you are able to reflect on your own actions. You can deal with accountability and responsibility because you will have integrity and honesty in saying, hey, I've really stuffed up, I need to fix this up. If you're not careful, you can end up in a state of depression though. It's very easy to be well balanced when there's no stress. I can say, look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have left the coffee cup on the edge of the table, but hey, you should have also looked where you're going. When it's something minor and there's no stress, it's very easy to do. But when the stress levels are really high, it's not so easy. And you have to be really careful to own the bit you need to own and push back what you don't. If you don't do that, you're likely to blame yourself for all kinds of things and end up in a state of depression, feeling very depleted. Perfectionism is a big trap. People who are perfectionists like to be across the board, doing well with everything, being perfect in every aspect of their life. And I don't actually think it's possible. It's okay if you want to be an Olympic basketballer and you decide to yourself that, okay, I'm going to spend 40 hours a week training to be an Olympic basketballer. You know that everything else will have to fall by the wayside. It's almost as if, as a perfectionist, what you really need to do is to kind of apportion your perfectionism across all the important areas of your life. So, if making kids' birthday cakes are the most important thing in your priority of achievements, then okay, put a huge percentage of your perfectionism into that. But if you try and do it across the board with everything, you're bound to fail. Okay. So think about what's important to you, where you want to put your perfectionism in what areas of your life, and be satisfied that you've done that rather than be looking at all the areas where you are not perfect, because there will be plenty. Difficulties with assertion skills. If you never ask for what you want, then you're passive, a doormat. If you are always being demanding and screaming or yelling or being difficult, expecting others to meet your needs, then you're aggressive. Now, in both of those cases, you don't get your needs met. It's much more sensible to be in the middle, to be assertive, to be able to state clearly what you think, what you feel, and what you would prefer to happen. If you're in good relationship with other people, they will try to meet your needs, just as you try and meet their needs. But if you never express what it is you want, you won't get your needs met. So practice on the little things. Practice on simple little interactions with people, saying, you know what, I'm thinking this. I'm thinking I might have a different opinion about this. I'm feeling a little bit intimidated or a little bit frustrated or whatever. You may not even want to say how you're feeling, but at least acknowledge to yourself what you're feeling, because that will give you an avenue for the next part, which is to say, what I would really like is this. Remember, with overthinking, what you're doing is living in your head instead of living in the moment. So take stock of where your head is going. Take stock of what neural pathway your brain is traveling down that is giving you all the grief. And take control and say, hey, I'm not doing that. What I want to do is I want to greet the world in this sort of way. I want to be like this. And your brain will swing into gear and follow your direction. Treat your brain like a little computer that you carry around on your head, telling it what you want it to do, giving it instructions rather than it being in control of you. So shift the focus to your emotional drive. Much easier to push hurt down rather than to speak up and say something in the moment. Just practice it. Try speaking up and saying, hey, I really didn't appreciate that comment, or I'd much prefer it if you said X, Y, or Z, or do you think you could find a nicer way of saying that? Or, hey, how about next time you remember me? Okay, or you know what, that really hurts. Once you address what it is you're feeling and spit it out, you're not carrying it and holding it. Because the more you do that, the more you're likely to be depressed. Catastrophizing. Any of these processes will be exacerbated if you catastrophize them. Makes them 10 times worse. You know when you're catastrophizing. So just take stock and say to yourself, hang on a minute, I don't need to overdo this. What's the bottom line here? What are the real facts? What are the real details? I don't need to get carried away because it doesn't help. So bring yourself back to the here and now and try and stay with what it is you want. Ask yourself, how do I want to do this? How do I want to be? How do I want to deal with this? Rather than letting all that catastrophizing take you into a place that makes you very anxious or very miserable. Negativity is the trickiest one. If you're in the habit of always being negative about the world, then know that you will always be miserable. It is a choice, and it is your choice. There's no pill that will fix negativity. You have to decide whether you want to view whatever the situation is in a positive way or a negative way. It's like having the doors closed. If you're going to be negative, the doors are closed and you can't see any way out. You can't see any option. Even if the doors open a little bit, you can see other possibilities, which may eventually lead out to a whole world of opportunities. But if the doors are shut, you don't see them. This is your choice. So try and be aware of what is happening in your brain, which neural pathway you are going down. If it's going down that negative pathway, take control and say, no, brain, we're not doing this. I'm going to reframe that and say to myself a much more positive view of whatever it is that's happening for you. Summary. Some people may only have one or two of those processes that lead to feeling depressed. Other people may have 4, 5, 6 or 7. Work out which are the worst ones for you and start with those. If you start choosing different pathways, you'll be surprised how your depression lifts. Awareness is the key. Following a Gestalt principle, once you're aware, you've already begun to change. So I wish you well in making the changes that will make you significantly happier. Thank you for listening.